No matter what I do, no matter how long I've been doing this, it doesn't seem to matter that the facts say that the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution did not, does not, was never intended to incorporate the Bill of Rights for use against the states. The Bill of Rights were meant to protect the states from the federales, not the other way around. This is not even worth debating any longer. It's a historical fact. Anyone that says anything else is an ahistorical dummy. Now, you could say, like Mark Kreslins used to say here on the Mark Kreslins show here on the Crusade Channel when Mark was on, that the incorporation doctrine is de facto now. He's right. It is de facto. And there's nothing I can do about it. It's not de jure. It shouldn't be de jure because it's an illegitimate law. Now, here we go again. I'm telling you, you wackos, you people, the neurotically obsessed with guns types, you're not doing yourself any favors by grandstanding. I know you think, wow, that's a principle, and I'm going to stand by the wave my flag and my gun. You're not doing yourself any favors by getting dragged, sucked into these debates with these ill-intentioned people and pushing the limits of discourse to the unbelievable levels that you're pushing them to. Listen to this. This is how ridiculous it's got now on the pages of thefederalist.com. If concealed carry reciprocity would violate states' rights. He didn't get the headline wrong. Right, there's an extra S in there. Would violate states' rights, so does the Civil Rights Act. So, this is what's known as a logical fallacy. One does not necessitate the other. Let me give you a perfect logical fallacy. Logical unfallacy. This is logic, simple, easy to understand. Syllogism. I'll give you a simple one. All men are mortal. I'll give it to you. His brother Francis will give it to you. All men are mortal. Socrates was a man. Socrates was mortal. That's a syllogism. That's how it works. So you have a minor term and a major term and then a conclusion that all are in harmony and in sync. There's no logical syllogism that arrives at if concealed carry reciprocity would violate states' rights, so does the Civil Rights Act. I don't know what back handspring cartwheels through flaming hula hoops this guy tries to fashion and pigeonhole this into, but it's just another desperate attempt to try and say that the right to keep guns is a constitutional right. Now, again, I'm going to try to differentiate here this. Now, if I were to say to you, trying to talk some sense into you people, I am not a gun grabber. I have 5 myself. But I'm not an incorporationista, and I'm also not a perverter of the U.S. Constitution. You shouldn't be either. So knock it off. Stop it. You can't win the argument. You're making ahistorical claims. Just say that you want it to be this way. You don't have any proof to back it up, but you want it to be this way. At least you're being honest. Let us go back to first meeting of the first Congress of United States. Met in early April of 1789. Congress number 1. They had been elected in 1788 and early 1789, and they were served their first term in 1780. right? Now, when they reported for duty, and not many of them showed up on time, for the first meeting, they didn't even have a quorum for like three or 4 weeks. Can't remember how long they had to wait for enough of them to show up to have a quorum. But when they met for the first time and they had the first Congress met, and I don't know, they met in New York City. They met at Federal Hall in New York City, I believe. Maybe it was Philadelphia, and then they moved to Federal Hall. Anyways, what did the Constitution not contain in April of 1789? Your time starts now, Roger. Best of luck. What did it not contain in April of 1789? Anybody? Bueller. It did not contain a Bill of Rights. We're all clear on this? I am so sick of this Second Amendment argument. I really am, but I'll do it again for you newbies. It did not contain a Bill of Rights. So, there was no constitutional clause or right to carry guns. Now, I got to ask you the question. Do you really think that the geniuses that drafted the U.S. Constitution outlawed guns? You really think that 9 states ratified the Constitution knowing that they had just ratified a gun grab? You can't possibly be that flipping stupid, that historically devoid of knowledge. Okay, so if there was no gun clause and there was no gun grab, and there wasn't, then what in dude's loudly yelled name could possibly then be the purpose and the animus behind the Second Amendment part of the Bill of Rights? What could possibly be the purpose? What else could it be? Well, if the Constitution didn't outlaw and didn't pave the way for Nazi-style gun grabs, why put the Second Amendment in there? Well, if you want to be historically accurate on this stuff, and I don't think most people do, quite frankly, I don't think most people care about this. They don't care about my explanations. They never did. Tolerate them. I'm still going back to being me. That's all about the Second Amendment, NRA. You's an idiot. You're an America hater. Yeah, sure I am. Sure I am. Because I try to correct your warped history. I'm an America hater. Right. Bill of Rights was not to keep the feds from disarming the populace. So I hold here in my hands in our pocket constitutions, which you can get in the Founders Trading Post and add to any order at mikechurch.com/shop for $1.99. This is what was attached to the Bill of Rights after it was drafted in 1790 and sent to the states to be ratified. This letter was attached to all 12, or it'd be 11 at that time, ratification efforts. Here's what it said. The conventions of, quote, the conventions of a number of the states having at the time of their adopting the Constitution expressed a desire in order to prevent misconstruction or abuse of its powers that, now, what is the it? What is the it? What is the it? The new government under the Constitution, the federal government. That's the it. In order to prevent misconstruction or abuse of its powers, that further declaratory and restrictive clauses should be added. So what are they doing? They want to make sure the new federal government doesn't get out of control. So they want to make declaratory, they want to declare new restrictions on it to prevent abuse. And as extending the ground of public confidence in the government, that's capital G, will best ensure the beneficent ends of its institution. And there's more than they send the Bill of Rights. Now, I'm sorry to all of you that this offends so grievously and that you want to spend hours and days debating and screaming and hollering and insisting and basically making yourself a historical laughingstock. Dude, just stop. Stop. I've done all the work for you. Just accept it as it is and just move on. You don't have a case. This insanity, and it is insanity. This neurotic insanity that there's been this constitutional universal carry rule embedded in the Constitution is a lie. It's a hoax. It didn't exist. It doesn't exist. And you and Wayne LaPierre and St. Dana Lash insisting that it exists doesn't make it so. It doesn't, it didn't, and it don't. Now, here's what did exist. So why put the Second Amendment in there? Well, go read the freaking debates. What little you can find about it. There's letters that are written by little Jimmy Madison explaining this. As a matter of fact, again, I've done all the work for you. There sits on the island of misfit CDs from Founding Father Films, The Spirit of 76, the story continues. I think it costs, like, if you have an order going, I think you can add it for like $1.99 or something like that. It's 41 minutes of explaining the Second Amendment as it actually happened, reenacting it. So what did occur? What did Amendment number 2 cover? And it was actually used many, many times. Well, it basically covered the procedure and policy under which, if there needed to be a call-up of troops from the states, militia from the states, then the Second Amendment covered how to call them up, what rights the states retain. Remember, what are they restricting? What did the Bill of Rights restrict? The federales. So restricting. So in other words, what they were trying to do was saying, you can't say that Maryland can't send these guys into battle with Delaware, together with Delaware. You can't exclude one militia over the other. You can't, in other words, when it says a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, no, it's talking about a state, again, right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. We're talking about the right of that militia to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now, I think that that's pretty clear. Also, just so you'll know, the Supreme Court should stay out of it. They have no say-so in it unless we're talking about militias. So the Heller case, all of that stuff is all garbage. That's all made-up jurisprudence. And unfortunately, it never should have happened. It ought to be wiped off the books. If you're going to have a gun-grabbing law, it ought to come from your state. And I don't mean a gun-grabbing law. I'm talking about sensible regulations so that blind people and the mentally insane can't get a firearm. I think that's reasonable, don't you? And that's the extent of it. The Second Amendment doesn't say, all the Second Amendment then says is this is a power that is left to the states, which is why I constantly refer you people. Somebody finally picked up on this and went, well, now I see. I constantly refer you to the best example of this is the 1891 example of the Constitution of Kentucky. Read it. Read the Bill of Rights, the Constitution of Kentucky, all will be made clear. No one at the time of the ratifying of Kentucky's 1891 Constitution barked or even mentioned the Second Amendment. They didn't need to because they knew that Kentucky had the authority to declare that if it wanted to keep mentally deranged weirdos and wackos of not having guns in public places, then they could. So just shut up and stop. Please, for heaven's sake. There are 870, what's truth? Conforming to mind or reality. What's reality? There are 800, this is the last estimate. I don't know, it may be a billion now. 875 billion firearms in private hands in the United States. And again, you people that sit there shivering behind your keyboard, oh, the libs are coming again, my God. Who? Nancy Pelosi? Who? The Parkland, Florida Police Department? Who's coming to get your guns? Susan Sarandon? Tim Robbins? Was Leonardo DiCaprio going to show up and, hey, I'm here to get your guns? Get out of here, Leo, or I'll kick your you-know-what. Should we be vigilant about this? Yes. And this is just another part of just how sordid and twisted any discussion about the federal government, as Mitt Romney would say, the federal government has become today. Your friends out there in the talk radio mafia, all the incorporationistas, they want national control of this. They don't care about federalism. They don't care about the Constitution. They don't care about your community. All they care about is their precious NRA membership and being able to go on Facebook and somewhere else and declare a universal right to pack. That's all they care about. You know, just imagine the Knights of the Round Table of the time of King Arthur and Arthurian legends arguing over the right to keep and bear swords. You know, they rode out confident that their souls were in a state of grace. They rode out into the Crusades and other battles, really not worrying about whether or not they died. Can you imagine that? As a matter of fact, this is a recent fascination, or fear, rather, of death. We have it. Admit a church, please. Every man has always been afraid of, you might have been afraid of judgment, but knowing that you had lived a life pursuing the sacraments and keeping the sacraments as you should, then no, they weren't afraid. Not like you're thinking. Anyways. This debate is never going to stop, despite what the historical record says. Again, well, don't you want to win the debate? Well, you know, every now and then, I'd like for somebody to go like, "Oh, I see. Okay, so you're not a gun grabber." I never have been a gun grabber. It's a matter of understanding, though, and look, when you understand this, then it makes, you know, kind of the attractability of a federal system. You know, you can see some of the logic behind it, of a real Republican system. We don't have one. All right, Youngblood is here with the 8:30 a.m. news, and I'll be right back.